Everyone laughed at the tail gunner's mirror setup, a crude fix that looked like pure desperation. Then the combat reports came back, and suddenly that crazy idea was tripling kill accuracy on B-17 and forcing commanders to pay attention. At first glance, the mirror setup looked like a desperate hack that had no place on a combat aircraft. But once you see what it lets one B-17 tail gunner track in real time, you'll understand why the numbers coming back from Germany stunned everyone in command. On the 15th of October 1943, Staff Sergeant John Romano was wedged into the tail of a B-17 that was almost 29,000 feet above Germany. Knees locked on a bicycle seat, shoulders pressed against cold aluminum. His hands gripped twin-point .60 caliber machine guns that weighed nearly as much as he does. Through a narrow plexiglass window, he sees it. A Focke-Wulf 195 sliding into position, 6 o'clock low, the deadliest angle, the one German pilots prefer. Romano squinted through his ring and beat its sight. 2 pieces of metal, no math, no computer, no correction for speed or angle. Nothing to help him solve a problem happening at over more than 500 miles per hour. He fired. The tracers trail behind the diving fighter, useless. The FW-195 answers instantly. Its 21mm cannons flash. Shells rip through the bomber's tail like paper. The aircraft shudders. Somewhere forward, men are hit. Romano doesn't see them. He can't look away. This moment is not unique. It happens again and again across the sky today. 295 B-17s have been sent deep into Germany on the second Schweinfurt raid. No fighter escort, no backup. By nightfall, 60 of those bombers will be gone. Almost 23% of the force was destroyed in a single mission. Another 139 limp home so damaged they will never fly again. More than 610 American airmen are dead. The math is unforgiving. At this rate, no bomber crew can statistically survive the required 25 missions. And post-mission analysis reveals an even darker truth. Tail gunners, the bomber's last defense against rear attacks, are hitting their targets less than 8% of the time. German pilots know this. They attack from behind, absorb a few seconds of inaccurate fire, then calmly dismantle America's billion-dollar bombing campaign, one aircraft at a time. Back in England, senior commanders gather at 8th Air Force headquarters. The idea of the flying fortress has failed. Without a solution, daylight precision bombing may be canceled altogether. What they don't know is that while these meetings are happening on a cold, hard stand at Bassingbourn Airfield, a 23-year-old tail gunner is sketching something in his logbook that violates multiple Army Air Forces regulations. A design engineer will later call it impossible. A modification officers will try to ban. An idea that will triple tailgun accuracy and save thousands of lives. This is the story of the solution no one asked for, and the gunner who refused to let it die. To understand why Romano's idea mattered, you need to understand the impossible job tail gunners faced in 1943. The B-17 was built on a naval concept: overlapping fields of fire, enough guns to overwhelm attackers through sheer volume. Army Air Forces posters called it a flying battleship. Combat exposed the truth. Romano arrived at Bassingbourn in August 1943 as a replacement gunner with the 91st Bomb Group, a factory worker from Pittsburgh. No college, no engineering training, only 19 when he enlisted. The Army trained him for almost more than 5 weeks. How to clear jams, estimate range, and hope. His position in the aircraft was barely larger than a coffin, kneeling, feet braced against structural ribs, wrestling twin Browning M2s mounted on a simple yoke. His only sight was a metal ring with a post, technology that hadn't changed much since World War I. To hit a fighter, Romano had to estimate speed, calculate deflection, lead the target, compensate for bullet drop, and fire before German cannons with 4 times the effective range tore his position apart. Even expert gunners struggled. In controlled training, hit rates barely reached 12%. In combat, freezing, hypoxic, under fire, accuracy collapsed to 8 or 9%. The Luftwaffe adapted fast. Attack from 6 o'clock, hold fire until 210 yards, except a few seconds of scattered tracers, then destroy the bomber. Tail guns were stated as marginally dangerous after action reports. On the 17th of August, the first Schweinfurt raid, more than 59 bombers were lost. And on the 8th of October, Bremen, more than 29 lost. On the 10th of October, Münster, 31 more. Losses outpaced production. In Washington, General Hap Arnold began asking the unthinkable question: was daylight bombing even possible? Engineers proposed fixes, more guns, bigger turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne modification promised improvement, but it wouldn't arrive until 1944. The bombers were dying now. And that's when a tail gunner with no credentials decided the problem wasn't firepower. That was the aim. Powered tail turrets already exist. On paper, they solve everything. In reality, installing one means removing the entire tail section. Factory-level work, weeks per aircraft. Impossible to do on bombers already scattered across England. While engineers debate timelines, men keep dying. John Romano flew his first combat mission on August 20th, 1943. The target was Gilze Ryan Airfield in the Netherlands. 4 Focke-Wulf 190s attacked his formation. Romano fires more than 450 rounds. He is certain he hits at least one. Gun camera review later tells a different story. Every tracer passes behind the fighters. 3 B-17s are destroyed. After his 4th mission, Romano doesn't head for debrief. He stays on the hard stand, alone, staring at his guns. His hands shake, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Manhandling 85-pound weapons at altitude while kneeling in a freezing tail section takes everything out of him. That night, he opens his logbook and starts drawing. The problem isn't the gun. It isn't even the mount. The problem is that tail gunners are firing blind. They chase targets they cannot track, aiming at points in empty sky, guessing where bullets might land seconds later. Romano realizes what's missing isn't firepower, it's feedback. He needed to see where his bullets were actually going before it's too late. What he needed was a reflector sight. The Army Air Forces hadn't given tail gunners one because there's no room. The tail section was too cramped. Installing a standard reflector sight would require breaking multiple regulations. Romano decided regulations were less important than survival. By every official measure, John Romano should never be designing weapons. Born in Pittsburgh in 1924, he dropped out of high school at 17 to work in steel mills while his father was sick. He learned machinery the hard way: trial, error, burned hands, broken parts. When the war started, he enlisted to escape factory life. The Army sent him to aerial gunnery school not because he was exceptional, but because he was small, only 4.9 feet tall. And it weighs only 150 pounds. He fit where others couldn't. His training scores were average. His instructors write nothing memorable. He earned his silver wings and was assigned to a B-17 crew as a spare part in a massive machine. But Romano had one quality the paperwork doesn't capture. He couldn't tolerate systems that fail. On 4th October 1943, Frankfurt, his bomber, returned riddled with 77 flak holes and fighter damage. Romano fires 622 rounds. He hit nothing. His best friend, a tail gunner in a neighboring B-17, was killed by a Messerschmitt 109 attacking from direct astern. Romano's return fire did not stop it. That night, something broke. Romano walked back to the aircraft revetment carrying a flashlight in his logbook. He climbed into the tail section, still smelling of cordite and hydraulic fluid, and stared at the ring and bead sight. The insight didn't arrive as a flash of genius. It came as a reflection. In the curved plexiglass window, Romano saw his own distorted image. More importantly, he saw angles behind the aircraft the iron sight could never cover. He started sketching immediately, and in his soliloquy, he was asking, what if mirrors could give him peripheral vision? What if he could watch his tracer paths instead of guessing? What if he combined mirrors with a simple reflector reticle, letting him track the target and his fire at the same time? It was not a computing gun sight, not even close. It was improvised, crude, probably illegal, but it might work. He spent 4 hours measuring angles with a carpenter's protractor scavenged from the machine shop. By dawn, he had a complete design. No power, no factory modification, just glass, mirrors, and brackets. It also violated Army Air Forces Technical Order Z0120EG2, unauthorized modification of defensive armament. punishable by court-martial. Romano didn't hesitate. He found his accomplice in the base sheet metal shop, Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman. He was in his 30s years old, Detroit, former Civilian Conservation Corps, a man who learned to fix broken systems with whatever was available. Romano showed him the sketches. Kellerman studied them for 5 minutes. He told him it's illegal, and then at this point, without any hesitation, Romano accepted that yes, it is illegal. The reply was flat, devoid of apology. There was no room for ethics when the mortality rate was climbing as fast as the altitudes. Kellerman shifted his gaze, his gray eyes locking onto the young airman, and asked when you are planning to fly again. Romano replied back tomorrow. He gave a sharp single nod of resolve and reached for a heavy wrench and stated that we should work quickly. They started after midnight in a corner of the hangar. Scrap mirrors from wrecked navigation gear, plexiglass from shattered canopies, aluminum brackets cut from written-off airframes. The reflector sight itself came from a damaged P-47 Thunderbolt. Kellerman reworked the mounting by hand. The mirror system took longer. 3 convex mirrors on adjustable brackets, positioned to show tracer paths without blocking forward view. After 4 a.m., the installation was finished. It was crude. Bolts where rivets should be, safety wire holding mirrors in place, a welded bracket that would horrify Boeing engineers. Nothing was logged. No one was told. Early in the morning briefing, Romano said nothing. His pilot didn't inspect the tail. The squadron armament officer didn't know. They took off at 7 o'clock. Over Germany at 10 o'clock, and Messerschmitt 109 lines up. 6 o'clock low. Romano swiveled his guns and looked through the new sight. For the first time, the target stayed centered. The illuminated reticle floated over the fighter. In his peripheral vision, the mirrors show his tracer paths instantly. He fired a 4-second burst. The mirrors told him the truth. He was shooting behind the target. Romano adjusted, just one reticle width forward, and this time the tracers walked straight into the fighter's flight path. He fired again. This time the tracers don't trail behind the fighter. They meet it. The Bf-109's engine detonated in a flash of flame. The aircraft snapped inverted in spirals toward the clouds below, trailing thick black smoke. For a second, Romano forgot to breathe. He looked from his guns to the mirrors, then back to the empty patch of sky where the fighter had been. When it worked exactly according to his expectation, he called it Holly, scared, and he whispered into his oxygen mask. Romano landed at 1:30 p.m. with 1 confirmed kill, his first. The celebration lasts exactly 22 minutes. At 2:05 p.m., during routine post-flight inspection, Crew Chief Master Sergeant Donald Pierce noticed the mirrors in the unfamiliar sight assembly. He freezes, then calls it in immediately. Captain Richard Voss, the squadron armament officer, arrived at the hard stand carrying a clipboard and a tightly controlled temper. Voss inquired Sergeant Romano, "That how you'll explain me this illegal equipment have installed in your gun position?" Romano at once replied that, "Sir, I installed my creativity in order to improve the sighting system." At this point, Voss again asked him what the hell you have installed. He got furious and his voice raised and said, "You have broken many rules. Technical Order 0120-EG2 clearly stated earlier that any kind of modifications to defensive armament is totally forbidden. Do you have an idea? It's very prime situation in a combat aircraft, not a backyard project. Unauthorized modification may cause strange fires, maybe some structural failures, or maybe some system interference." Then Romano replied back, "Sir, it really worked and I shot with the system." Voss said, "I don't care even if you shot down the whole Luftwaffe." Voss cuts in, jabbing a finger toward the tail. "That equipment is not up to the Army Air Force's standard, and it is also not Boeing approved." Then he ordered that it be removed immediately, or I will recommend court-martial for destruction of government property. Romano's pilot, Lieutenant James Holbrook, stepped forward and started bashing Captain. "My tail gunner got his first kill today using that sight." Voss didn't even turn his head to look at him. His eyes remained locked on the sergeant, burning with a bureaucratic fever. He stated that "We have noted your opinion," his voice dropping to a dangerous, icy whisper. At last he went. "The order is final." The modification came off. By evening mess, the entire 91st Bomb Group knew the story. An illegal mirror sight, 1 mission, 1 kill. Veteran gunners crowd around Romano, asking questions. How wide is the field of view? Does it shake at speed? Can the mirrors hold under slipstream stress? The engineering officers react very differently. On the 12th of October, Captain Theodore Morrison convened an emergency meeting. 15 officers. The mood is hostile. Morrison said that we have a discipline problem, moreover told that an enlisted man modified defensive armament using salvaged components of unknown origin. If we allow this, we may invite chaos. Major Calhoun said that the operations officer fired back, and Romano shot down an enemy fighter. Our tail gunners average 9% hit rates. If this improves that even slightly. Morrison interrupted him. Slightly? And he said, one engagement is not data, Calhoun said. We should test it then and put him up again. Gun cameras couldn't lie. The room erupts. Engineers cite safety. Combat officers cite casualty lists. At 2010, the argument landed on Colonel Stanley Ray's desk. Ray is 54 by age, a career officer and a First World War bomber pilot. He listened for more than 1 hour without interrupting. Then he asked a question. Do you know how many bombers we lost last week? Silence. Captain Morrison stated that it was 17, sir, and confirmed tail gunner kills? 3. Ray nodded slowly. 17 aircraft, 680 American airmen, for 3 German fighters. He looked at Morrison and said that, Captain, your concern for regulations is noted, but I'm more concerned about losing 17 airplanes a week because our defenses don't work. He turned to Romano and said, your modification stays. You'll fly the next 3 missions with gun cameras recording everything. If your hit rate improves, we adopt it. If not, we remove it and you face discipline. He asked him, do you understand? And Romano replied promptly, yes, I understand completely. Ray stood, and the meeting adjourned, and someone got me those mirror drawings. On the 12th of October, 1943, Romano flew again. The 8th Air Force sends 236 B-17 bombers against submarine construction facilities. The Luftwaffe responded with nearly 260 fighters. At 11:30 over the German coast, a Focke-Wulf 190 dived from 7 o'clock high. Romano tracked it through the reflector sight. The reticle floated steady. In the mirrors, his tracer paths appear instantly. He fired, adjusted, fired again. The FW-190's wing root erupted in flame. The fighter broke away trailing smoke. At 11:50, a Bf-109 attacks from 6 o'clock level. Romano centers the reticle, checks the mirrors, and fires a controlled burst. The canopy shattered. The fighter rolls inverted and dives out of formation. Gun cameras capture everything. Romano returned with 3 confirmed kills and 1 probable. He expended 370 rounds total. That's 190 rounds per kill. The group average is 2,800. Captain Morrison watched the footage in silence. Finally, he exhaled and said to himself it worked. Further, he said that there is also a need for proper drawings and process minimum 6 weeks. Ray told him that we don't have enough time for 6 weeks. After that, he moved towards Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman and asked him, how many can you build in minimum time? Kellerman replied properly that with the sheet metal shop, I can make 4 a day. Ray nodded and ordered him to start immediately. What followed would terrify procurement officers for decades. Reflector sight pulled from wrecked P-47s, mirrors salvaged from damaged navigation gear, aluminum stripped from written-off airframes. By October 20th, 18 B-17s in the 91st Bomb Group carried Romano's mirror sight, and for the first time in the daylight bombing war, tail gunners stopped guessing. The results were immediate and impossible to ignore. 20th October, the Duran mission. Tail gunners equipped with Romano's mirror reflector sights engage almost 50 German fighter attacks and score 10 confirmed kills. That's a 22.1% hit rate, nearly triple what the 8th Air Force considered normal. On 4th November, after 15 days, the Wilhelmshaven mission. 15 confirmed kills against 66 attacking fighters. Hit rate, 23.5%. The very next day, the Gelsenkirchen incursion, 14 confirmed kills. Hit rate, 21.8%. The pattern is no longer a coincidence. For the first time in the daylight bombing campaign, bomber survivability changes in measurable ways. Luftwaffe pilots who once attacked B-17s from 6 o'clock with near impunity now face accurate, sustained defensive fire. German after-action reports take notice. Recommendations appear in squadron briefings. Revise rear approach tactics. The tail is no longer safe. Major Hans Joachim Jabs, a Luftwaffe ace temporarily assigned to day fighter operations, wrote in his combat diary, "The flying fortresses have become significantly more dangerous. Their tail gunners now show accuracy previously seen only in powered turrets. Rear attacks now carry unacceptable risk." Word travels quickly up the chain. On 19 November, Brigadier General Frederick Castle, commander of the 4th Bombardment Wing, arrived at Bassingbourn without warning. He inspected Romano's tail position himself. He reviewed the gun camera footage frame by frame. Then he interviewed Romano for almost 35 minutes. Romano was being asked by Castle, "How did you know this would work?" Romano shrugged and replied that he didn't, sir. "But the old sights definitely didn't. I figured anything else had a better chance. That's why I tried it, and it magically worked." Castle laughed. It's the first time anyone has laughed about bomber losses in months. Then he looked Romano in the eye. "Sergeant, you splendidly saved more American lives than you ever know." By December 1943, Romano's design, now officially labeled the Field Expedient Tailgun Aiming System, Type 1, was installed in more than 190 B-17s across multiple bomb groups. Formal engineering studies follow. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center, already developing an improved tail turret, quietly incorporates the same reflector sight principles. When the production Cheyenne turret appeared on B-17Gs in January 1944, it featured an N8 reflector sight positioned almost exactly where Romano mounted his salvaged P-47 unit. The impact is undeniable. Between October 1943 and March 1944, bomber groups equipped with improved tail sights suffered 33 to 36% fewer losses from rear attacks. That translates to hundreds of aircraft and thousands of airmen who survived missions they statistically should not have survived, all because of a modification one officer initially called illegal and dangerous. Romano continued flying through February 1944. He finishes with 8 confirmed kills and 3 probables, extraordinary numbers for a tail gunner. But his real contribution spreads far beyond his own aircraft. The system moved across the 8th Air Force, then into the 15th Air Force in Italy, influencing defensive upgrades on B-24 Liberators as well. On the 23rd of February 1944, during Big Week, Romano's bomber took heavy flak over Leipzig. Hydraulic fluid and fuel spray through the tail section as he continues firing. The aircraft crash lands in Belgium. The crew survives. Romano spends the rest of the war in a German POW camp. He returned home in May 1945, weighing 128 pounds. The Army Air Forces awarded him the Distinguished Flying Cross for extraordinary achievement in aerial flight, carefully omitting the fact that his innovation began as an unauthorized modification. Romano never seeks attention. He turned down interviews. When Boeing invited him to Seattle to discuss turret development, he declined. "I just made what I needed to survive," he said. "Other people made it official." He returned to Pittsburgh, married his high school sweetheart, and worked as a machinist for almost 40 years. His children grow up knowing only that their father flew bombers and fixed gun sights. But his impact lives on. Boeing built 8,680 B-17Gs during the war, most equipped with tailgun systems directly descended from Romano's field modification. The Luftwaffe abandoned rear attacks, shifting to head-on approaches that proved far deadlier for German pilots. The fighter lost altitude throughout 1944. Post-war analysis confirms the scale of the change. Across thousands of missions, improved tailgun sights save an estimated 850 bombers and more than 8,500 crewmen. Men who should not have come home. In 1983, at a reunion at Bassingbourn Airfield, a former tail gunner named Gerald Hammond approached Romano. He holds a battered mirror bracket he's kept for 40 years. Hammond said to Romano, "It just happened because of you. I came home. My kids exist because you couldn't accept bad gun sights, Romano." Uncomfortable, shrugged and said anyone would have done the same. But that isn't true. Thousands of gunners face the same broken system. Only one refused to accept it. Only one risked punishment to fix it. Only one trusted his instincts over regulations when lives were on the line. John Romano died in 2003. His obituary mentions his service in a single line. World War II veteran, 8th Air Force. It doesn't mention the mirrors. It doesn't mention the lives saved. It doesn't mention that a 22-year-old factory worker solved a problem generals couldn't. Because the most important innovations don't wait for permission. They come from people who refuse to watch others die while waiting for approval. CTA, if this surprises you, stay with us. Hit like, subscribe for more stories the history books skip, and see how a handful of mirrors and one stubborn tail gunner flipped the balance of power in the skies over Europe.